So it's barely a week since the National Prayer Day was organized under the auspices of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. And we are very privileged to have speak to us about that, and also about that upcoming Global Prayer Work Summit. His Eminence, the Archbishop himself, Nicholas Duncan Williams, who has gladly agreed to speak to us as he does, I won't say frequently, but fairly regularly. Your Eminence, thank you for speaking to us here on ChannelOne TV and on Dominion TV as well.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I think last week when I saw you on TV, I think you were happy because one of your passions being prayer. I was looking at how you were conducting yourself as you prayed for the president and the vice and all the work that had gone into that program, and I said, this man is very happy. But it seems to me this is not the first time we've done such a National Day of Prayer, correct?
Yeah, it has happened before during the time of President Rawlings.
Okay.
We did a National Day of Thanksgiving, and we held it a couple of years from Accra and then to Ho and then to Kofredwa and then to Kumasi. But it was an initiative by President Rawlings. So when his term ended, that ended it.
But this seems a bit different in terms of the coverage it got, the scope of people who came, and the fact that it looks much more, how shall I say, larger. Would you
Absolutely.
agree? Yes.
And national.
What do you think accounts for this difference in scale?
I believe that this time around, looking back to then and now, I believe that one of the initiatives of the president and the team working was to mobilize all the religious council, from the Catholic bishops, the Christian Council, Pentecostal Council, the NAC, get all the bodies involved, and even involving the Muslims, our brothers. We brought them all together, you know, and then there was a lot of consultation that took place. They went to consult the traditional rulers and also the chief imam and all the religious bodies in the country. So it wasn't just the decision of the president, it was his initiative. But the strategy was to get everyone involved. All stakeholders must be involved.
Some people say, you African country, you need to develop. Why are you doing National Day of Prayer on Republic Day? Think about economic development. Why is it important for a nation to come together to pray?
If you look at America, the Americans, and you look at the British, in 1940, His Majesty King George VI declared a National Day of Prayer when they were confronted by Hitler's troop. And also it was twice when the army of the UK were trapped at Dunkirk, and is in history called the miracle of the Battle of Dunkirk. Twice a National Day of Prayer was declared, and then a National Day of Thanksgiving after that prayers were answered was also declared. I think that the God factor in the governance of every country is very, very critical if we are going to do well. And most of the countries we look up to, whether it's North America or Europe, a lot of them have had history of having God in their affairs and in their governance. It's just that a generation has come up today that for the failure of fathers or parents raising them up with the knowledge of God, just believe that science and working hard and systems, it's okay, and they ignore the supernatural or spirituality. But I have zero tolerance for people who have no value and respect for the supernatural, for spirituality, because man is a spirit, soul, and body. And the reason why people die is because when your spirit departs from your body, you are finished, you are gone. The body don't function without the spirit. It's the spirit that keeps the body and the soul of man alive. So it's very important, and I think that the president should be highly commended for the boldness to declare a national day of prayer and thanksgiving, where prayers are offered to God, because in the book of Daniel, the 4th chapter, the 17th verse, the Bible says that all the living may know that the Most High rules in the affairs of men, and give the kingdoms of men, not Israel, but the kingdoms of men to whomsoever he wills, chooses, or pleases.
Wow. You made some comments during the prayer. You prayed as well, and the media covered something where you said you are really hoping for the day where no Ghanaian will be queuing just for visa to another country because they've developed better. Can you throw a bit more light on your heart in that commentary?
It breaks my heart anytime I see our people, our citizens, queuing for visas to leave this country. And then I meet so many of them outside, all over the nations, living for years without legal papers to work. And so they work for hours and days, and they earn crumbs because they don't have the legal document, to get a proper job and to earn what they deserve. And I believe that with the kinds of blessing God is giving to us, like I said, in the 50s and 60s, Ghana was more developed than a lot of countries, than South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, Finland, and even to a point China. And this retrogression must be arrested with the gold we are blessed with the oil and cocoa. Truly speaking, if things are well handled and managed, our people and our children must not leave this country to seek for greener pastures anywhere in the world.
You are very strong on leadership, and so when the College of Men of God asks you to pray for the president and the vice, I know you've prayed for many presidents. How important is it for us to pray for those two who are leading what they call a reset, right? Because the government says it's a reset. President Mahama and Vice President Jenano Pokajima. Why is it important for citizens to keep praying for them as they do their leadership?
According to scriptures in 1 Timothy 2, the Bible admonishes us to pray and intercede for kings, heads of state, presidents. And there is a lot of benefit in praying for leadership, because the ability to see, to hear, to smell, to think, to speak, it's all embedded in the head. And so praying for leaders and the head is very critical for the success, progress, development of any country or nation in the world. And the fact of the matter is that whatever a leader does, right or wrong, has serious implication, not just on him, but on the entire citizen or the nation. And so it is highly commended and recommended, and it's also a command that we intercede and pray that those in authority who have wisdom. And if you look at the 50s, the 60s, and the early 70s, we've had some great leaders, and I think that there's a big vacuum, when it comes to visionary leaders and also selfless leadership in the continent today. And that is why, as never before, intercession must rise to God for leaders, because it's not easy to be a leader. It's tough. And the kinds of things leaders have to confront with on daily basis, the demands, the stress, the pressure, the distractions, and the manipulations the expectations of the people is a lot. And no leader can function and do well and better for country without God's intervention, whether he believes it or not.
We're speaking to His Eminence, the Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams, as a prelude to the Global Prayer Work Summit, which is happening for the first time in Ghana. We just spent a few minutes reflecting on the National Day of Thanksgiving under the auspices of His Excellency the President. When we come back, we'll delve into why this Global Prayer Summit is crucial and what benefits Ghana stands in hosting it, and who are some of the people to expect as we delve further into the conversation on our double-decker show. Stay with us. Welcome back. Tonight we're speaking to His Eminence, the Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams. Later on, you would hear from Archbishop, or actually Cardinal Apia Texan as well, who spoke to us on the sidelines after the National Prayer and Thanksgiving Day. The Global Prayer Work Summit. So apparently it's been on for 2 decades.
In the U.S.
In the U.S.
North America and certain parts of Europe and then South America.
So what is the Global Prayer Work Summit?
It's a prayer, it's a gathering of believers who come from all over the countries, the nations, the place, to intercede for specific cities and communities and nations. And I've been doing this for the past 20 years as the Spirit of God inspired me and led me to take prayer to North America. And that is what we've done for the past 20 years. But recently, the Spirit of God inspired me that it is time to bring it back to Africa. And I felt that charity begins at home. And even though we do pray here, I'm going to bring the first global prayer works to Ghana. The other thing also that inspired me to do this is the fact that so many Africans register online. We give them letters and they apply for visas all over the nations in Africa, and they are turned down and they don't get visas to come, you know, and it's been happening over the years. And I just felt that, you know what, if they will not let our people come over to join us, and then the expensive when they come in hotels and everything it takes, I felt strongly that it's time to bring it back home.
Could it also be that the move of God seems to be coming down to what is called the Global South? So, for example, we know that the Europeans, they came with the missionaries early days after the Protestant Reformation, and of course Azusa Street, North America. It seems to me that if you look at the growth of the global church, Africa is reasserting itself, and many commentators have said that the revival in the world is in the Global South. So could that also be one of the reasons why the Lord is inspiring you to bring the summit to Africa and therefore Ghana?
Yeah, I strongly believe that this is the moment, a Kairos moment for Africa and the church in Africa. And there is no revival without prayer. John Wesley of the Methodist Church said that it seems to me that God can do nothing until somebody prays. And Charles Spurgeon in the 18th century said, I'd rather train one man to pray than to train 10 people to preach. So there's something about intercession. The truth of the matter is that in the beginning, in the Garden of Eden, prayer was not necessary. It wasn't needed. But when man ceded his dominion mandate and committed treason, you know, and decided that he would do better without God, and broke away from the principles of God and decided to be independent of God, and the enemy stepped in, prayer became a daily necessity, because man was the governor of the entire earth, and he ceded that dominion to the devil and made the devil the god of this world. So the devil rules this earth, and the only thing that overrides him is when prayer goes up And when prayer goes out, it gives heaven the authorization to intervene in the affairs of men. Before that, that wasn't necessary. So prayer is a daily necessity. The Bible says, it's one of the things I'll be dealing with at the summit, where the Bible says that, is there anyone afflicted, in pain? Is there anyone suffering? Is there anyone oppressed? James 5:13, he said, let him pray. It is a very clear, what I would call a solution, a prescription, an antidote to affliction. Is there any among you in pain, suffering, oppressed? Let him pray, period. Now, a very wealthy guy bought a car for the daughter. She was in uni. And she drove the car for 18 months. One day she was coming home and the car broke down. So she left the car on the highway, came home, and the dad said, where's your car? She said, it broke down, I left it on the highway. Daddy said, welcome home, girl, no problem. So he called the mechanics to go tow the car to the workshop. They took the car to the workshop. The engine was damaged. And they realized that for 18 months, he never changed the oil. And so the dad said, have you been changing your oil? She said, I didn't know I have to do that. And he said, have you read the manual? She said, no, I haven't read any manual. I didn't know there was a manual in the car. And he said, but there's a manual that gives you instructions how to handle the car. Every manufacturer, when they create things, it comes with a manual. And as long as you follow the instructions of the manual, things work. The Bible is the manual that God has given to man that governs our life from the day we were born to the day we check out from this earth. And the instruction of that manual says, if you are in pain, you are afflicted, oppressed, facing any challenge, you pray. And one of the messages I'm going to be tackling and preaching on at this global prayer works is this: when things don't make sense, that is the time to pray.
Wow.
And if you look at this country in Africa, there is no reason why we shouldn't be doing better than we are doing. If you look at Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea, and others compared to us, we have retrogressed. If you look at where we were in the 50s and 60s, and it's very clear that something is wrong because things don't add up. There is an error somewhere. And that is one of the main reasons why we have to pray like we've never prayed before. Since independence, this nation have gone to the IMF 18 times with our gold, cocoa, discovery of oil, and other minerals. It shouldn't be so. So something is not adding up. And I'm a spiritual man, so I will encourage our economics and our politicians to do what they do the best. But I will also say that when things don't make sense, that should make sense. Those are indications that something is wrong and it is time to pray, to engage. Prayer engages the Creator.
Wow. Your theme, Revive Us Again, what does revival look like?
People ask me all the time, what is revival? Okay, it has to do with being renewed. Okay, being renewed or coming back alive. But I simply put it this way, that revival means when God comes to town. And we need that. Because when God comes to town, the foolishness leaves town. And there's too much foolishness all across the nations. And we need God to come to town for there to be order. There's too much disorderliness. And when God comes to town, things that are out of order comes into order. And things that are out of alignment comes into alignment. And this nation and the nations of Africa, we need some realignments to get us back on course. We've lost our way. For Ghana, 68 years, we've been wandering in the wilderness. It's time for us to find our way. And God is that light and that guidance we need to bring us back home.
I can feel the passion for the continent. You are clearly a prophet of the continent. You feel the pain of the country. So and I notice every time there's political unrest in any part of the continent, you are very unhappy, very worried. Even though you travel and talk to the leaders, you believe prayer can solve what diplomacy and meetings have not been able to solve.
I strongly believe that, because some of the conflicts, if you look at the situation in the DRC, it's been ongoing, that conflict, for 30 years. It don't make sense. It's one of the richest countries in the entire world. They have so much minerals, and yet people are impoverished. And you just can't make sense of that conflict. And nobody has been able to deal with it. And we've been tackling it in prayers and intercession. Lately, thank God for the interventions that have taken place so far. And the peace treaty has been signed in Washington. And we are believing that Rwanda and the DRC will be able to find a common ground to work together and to bring a permanent peace to that region. There is no need for the kind of suffering of the masses, the killing of mothers and kids, and the sharing of innocent blood. This has gone on for too long, and there is no military attempt that hasn't been made, and it cannot be fixed. And I'm telling you, when things like this happen, that goes beyond the reasoning and the logic and the philosophies of men, those are indicators to tell us that this thing is more than what the eyes can see, and more than what logic and philosophy can make sense of. And it is time to pray. So one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about prayer is because when you look at some of the crises and the challenges on our continent, it just doesn't make sense. It don't make sense. You call it, I don't want to mention names of countries, but it just does not make sense for us to so retrogress with all that we have. And this country and continent have some great leaders and still do in certain areas. And there is no reason why this continent and our country, Ghana, must not thrive and flourish. There's no reason our currency can't do better. With the gold reserves we have, and the oil and the cocoa, we can do better. We just need visionary leaders and selfless leaders. And I believe that President John Mahama is a visionary leader and a selfless leader, because he's been here before. He's learned from his past mistakes, and I believe he has come back with a drive and a passion and a determination to correct the errors of the past and to make a difference and to go down in history as one that walked and came back and made a difference.
Let's end on two notes. Who are some of the speakers for this event?
It's myself, and I'm being supported by Reverend Isuranaba, Reverend Ampia Kofi, Reverend Asari from Takoradi, Dr. Philip Aye, and Prophet Prince, and few others will be supporting me.
So you're using your Ghana team
Yeah.
to anchor the summit this year,
Yeah,
which is quite significant.
absolutely.
Ghana at the center of global prophecy.
It is our moment. This is our moment. And when is your moment, calling on God and reaching out to the Most High is very critical, so that you don't abort your mission. And missions and great moments can be aborted in the history of nations when people disregard or when people ignore the God factor and the role of the Most High in the governance of countries and nations.
Before you go, there's been a couple of social media posts in the past 2 weeks. One by a former High Commissioner of the UK to Ghana, accusing you of certain things, and also some local politician also making some claims. His party has come to dissociate themselves from that. But since you're speaking to the media for the first time, do you want to make any comment?
I wouldn't want to dwell on it that much because I'm used to these kind of media misrepresentations over the years. This is my 47th year in ministry, and I've seen the outcome of such individuals. I think that people should not make any mistake that the fact that you attack people and discredit people and throw stones at others, and for whatever reason you think you are free, nothing has happened to you, make no mistake, it's a lie. I've seen the implications of these things. I've seen these kinds of people over the years and the decades. They never end well. And that is all I'll say. That before you throw stone at someone else, examine yourself. Because the woman that was caught in adultery, there was an error there. It takes two to commit adultery. But they left the man and brought the woman. That was the first thing there. Secondly, everybody had a stone to stone the woman. Jesus said, anyone among you who is not guilty of something and who is without sin, let him throw the first stone. And everybody dropped their stone and walk away. And I think that some of these things is the hypocrisy of the human nature, where everybody is guilty of something, and yet they have the audacity to throw stones at others. So all I'll say to some of these individuals, before you throw your stone and cast your stone at me, please examine yourself, see where you stand. Because where I'm wrong and guilty may not be where you are wrong and guilty, but you are guilty of something. The Bible says, if the Lord shall count iniquity, who shall stand? So all I'll say here is, I've seen the end result of such individuals over the years, without mentioning names. All that I'm putting it out there and let it go on record, that there are implications for touching people and pointing finger at others. When you point this finger, the rest points at you. You know, one of the things I've learned about some of these social media's attack is the fact that whatever you pay attention to determines your direction. So I choose not to pay attention on some of these things so that it doesn't determine my direction in life.
It's 17th, 18th, and 19th July, Thursday to Saturday. There are 3 sessions, 9 a.m., 2 p.m.
We pray every 3 hours.
5:30 p.m. I want you to end by looking directly at the camera and inviting people of faith to be at the Global Prayer Work Summit.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you and also to invite you, to encourage you to take advantage of this moment, to join with us. There is something about corporate praying. I know you've been praying individually, and I know you've been praying all these years and months, but I need you to pray one more prayer. I need you to join us at this time to override stubborn situations and any defiance and anything that stands against your prayers, your intercession. You cannot miss it. I look forward to having you join with us. There is something about two putting 2,000 to flight. The Bible said one put 1,000 to flight, two is supposed to put 2,000 to flight. But God said there is something about synergy when you come together in unity. God said instead of addition, 1 + 1 making 2, I will give you multiplication. So instead of 1 + 1 making 2, I'll give you 10,000. That is multiplication. So I need you to make the effort and join us. 3 sections a day. Saturday it ends at 9 a.m. from 7 to 9 a.m. And all these speakers I've mentioned are joining forces with me. It's a time of intercession, praying every 3 hours, every 3 hours, every 3 hours. Remember, resistance breaks when we persevere. And these are the times of together we can make a difference. See you there.
Thank you very much, His Eminence, the Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams, convener of the the Global Prayer Works Summit, which is happening from the 17th to the 19th. We've been speaking about the National Day of Prayer as well. When we come back, we'll be talking to another eminence, His Eminence Cardinal Peter Texan, who's been talking to us also about the importance of what happened last week and his views about some national issues. Stay with us.